All right, let's get started. LaTasha, I am so looking forward to this conversation with you today. Thank you for your time. And I think Kelly and I both admire you a ton. And you have obviously made some waves at NFM Lending. So, really excited to take a moment and just peel back those layers just a bit and get a deeper understanding of just your journey.
We had our my favorite moment together is my first time at the Kentucky Derby.
Oh,
So
that was the
it,
best.
that
That
was one of
was,
the best trips ever. And
oh my
so
gosh.
experiencing that with both of you was incredible.
Yeah.
And we go back a couple of years now. I mean,
Hmm.
it's been a very interesting ride. So I'm happy to be on this conversation with you all and talk a little bit about how we can continue to change the world together.
Yeah.
Yes. I love it.
Absolutely. I love that. And we'll have to give a little shout out to Mr. Greg Share for really putting that experience together because that was definitely memorable, a bucket list item for me.
Yes.
And it was just next to none. We have some good pictures from that time too, I remember. We'll have to share that.
Weather was perfect. That might have been the only
Hmm.
Kentucky Derby where it didn't rain.
Right.
I know.
We're
Oh my
lucky.
gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Latasha, I did listen to your interview with Total Expert. I think it was Kate Cosgrove, and you also had Kendall on. She's branch manager at Main Street Home Loans, and that was a really fun conversation to listen to. You had shared a lot of nuggets with the world, and I have to be honest, in all the conversations that I've ever had with people within the mortgage space, not one of them has said that they intended to land here. Like everybody's like, I just fell into mortgages, you know? It was
Yeah.
never like front of mind for me or something that I wished to be when I was a little kid, right? So,
Yes.
can you walk us through your journey from maybe like way back to now where you're president at NFM Lending?
Yeah, it is still very surreal to be completely candid and transparent that I'm the president of a very large mortgage company. So I am a lawyer and I don't know what happened with the visual there, but nevertheless, I in 2001 I graduated from law school and met someone who was on the regulatory side at the law firm,
Hmm.
and she and I became fast friends. And she left the law firm. We kept in touch,
Hmm.
and 10 years later, she contacted me about a position at NFM. She was our first general counsel at NFM. And so the rest is really history. I did not intend to stay here as long as I have been here, to be honest with you. I had lost my job in 2008 with the Great Recession,
Hmm.
and so I was consulting and raising children,
Yeah.
and this opportunity presented itself, and I really liked her a lot because we were friends. And
Hmm.
I met David, and I met the president at the time, and Bob, and some of the other leadership, and I was just really sold on the idea of
Hmm.
how can I play a part, whether it's a small part or
Right.
large part, on home ownership.
Right.
And it really has just been that. And so here I am 15 years later, and I'm just as energized, as excited as I was 15 years ago.
That's really cool.
And I feel like, I mean, I've worked with you enough, Latasha, to feel that and see that. I didn't even know that you had been here that long because I think sometimes when someone has that tenure, they seem to kind of get used to everything and this is the way it is. But I feel like just working with you, there's always the idea of innovation and how can we make this better and what's
Hmm.
next. And so when the company announced the big announcement that Latasha was going to be leading the way, it sounded like, I mean, that was what it's meant to be. So it was
Hmm.
perfect. And we talked about this a little bit before we got this started, but I think you said something like only 2% of the mortgage companies in the industry,
Yeah.
are led by women, like a
Yes. Yeah.
woman CEO or
Oh,
president.
wow.
And why do you think that is? Or what do you think we can contribute in a different way?
Yeah, I mean, it's over 1,000 mortgage companies, and 2% represent women who are either CEO and president. It was astonishing when I saw that LinkedIn post about that. I almost didn't believe it, and I think I didn't believe it because of our stats. So many people know NFM was started by a husband and a wife, and in that scenario, Sandy was the loan originator at the time. She was a salesperson, right? And so they started NFM, and currently 40% of our sales team are women, and it goes all the way through leadership. And so we have a lot of representation of women. We're over 50% women as an industry, as an organization rather. And so when you're not in that lived experience, you kind of get like, okay, it's happening at NFM, so it must be happening at some of these other organizations. And how do we continue to do it is we're doing exactly what it is we have women in leadership, we have women in mid-management, we have women in sales, we're everywhere, right? Yeah. And so I think when we're in the room and we have the women in the room that are making the decisions, that are hiring, then you continue to have this flywheel effect of more women wanting to be a part of this incredible organization. And Kelly, I love what you said about my continued excitement. Like every day, I just want to figure out how we can kill it as an organization. I wasn't an athlete. I probably should have been an athlete, but I'm super competitive. And so I will tell you, these announcements of all of these mergers and acquisitions that we're seeing every day now, it just makes me more emboldened to create something that is just magic for this industry and for the consumers. And so we talked about you and Leslie, how you joined the organization from different backgrounds, different industries. And I was saying before we joined, I feel like that's been our secret sauce, quite honestly, because you aren't serving 10,000, 20,000 consumers that are all mortgage people. They're not mortgage people. They're teachers. They're in marketing. They're social workers. They're veterans. And you have to be relatable. And so I do think, Leslie, you and Kelly have done something pretty incredible, is that you've brought in your experience outside of industry and you've made it cooler. You've made it relatable, and this is why you all will do $1 billion in volume. This is why you'll do $2 billion in volume, because you're not just focused on the industry aspect of it. You're focused on the human aspect of it, on the experience aspect of it. And in a world where we're getting more removed from that, you still are bringing it to the forefront, which excites me, which I love. And so we should probably do a different, another podcast about how do you market in the middle? How do you market to the next generation? How do you reach people who have no mortgage experience and get them into homes? So that'll be that'll be 2.0.
Oh yeah.
LaTasha, I'm like fired up right now. That whole conversation, I'm like, yes, you're right. That is absolutely kind of the secret sauce, right? We all bring different strengths, and I think Kelly can probably relate to this with working with our husbands. They're, elite at what they do, but having us as an addition to that really does expand and help, their reach a little bit, I feel like.
Yeah. You're elite together, right?
Yeah, we touched on that. Like the women, when I was kind of prepping for this, I was interested in how many women make a career change versus men. And obviously women, the numbers show like women have outperformed men on that. But I think that's because of how we can adjust, our agility. We can move from one thing to the next very fluidly without losing focus. And I think that is what you see when we have a lot of husband and wife teams.
Yes.
And just, they work so well together, you know. So when you have a male dominated industry or a female dominated industry, I think like having that female and male balance. And I know you kind of touched on this as a company, but in our division, our employees, we're 50-50,
Yeah.
women and men. So that's kind of great too. So we see how powerful that can be because
Yeah.
of how we're leading in numbers.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. LaTasha, I heard you mention that kind of when you started with NFM, you were really inspired by the existing leadership and you really wanted to be a part of that, but you weren't, you had no expectation of like how big of a part you would play.
Yeah.
How did you grow into the position that you're in having such a big role in impact within the organization? What do you think that people saw in you that kind of helped you get here?
I just want to know everything. And I want to know everything about an organization. I want to know as much as I can about the people that I'm working with. And I want to do that so that I can use it to see where I can support them in the best and highest use of their time and their career here. I have had very horrible work environments, very toxic work environments before coming to NFM. And I remember being in moments where I was like, if I ever manage anybody, like even if it's just one person, I'm never going to do it this way, or I'm never going to treat this person this way. I'm never going to talk to them this way. I'm going to give them an opportunity to have a career. Yeah. And so with that, at NFM, because of it was timing, some of it, because we were small. We weren't even at $1 billion when I joined. We were 125 employees, and so
Amazing.
Being the only lawyer here, they assume I was smart in certain areas, and so they were like, "Give it to LaTasha. Like, let LaTasha run it. LaTasha can oversee it." Like, at one point, I was overseeing Encompass, which probably was negligent, but don't blame me for how Encompass looks now. But I was I was overseeing QC. I was just taking all of these departments because either no one really wanted to do it, or no one really wanted to do it like at the level I wanted to do it. And so as a result of taking on all these different departments that had nothing to do with me, even marketing, having a lot of involvement there, as we got larger, it just evolved, and it just ended up amassing all this knowledge and information about things that had nothing to do with legal and compliance, and it just stayed that way, right? And I just really love seeing people win, and I love rooting for the underdog. And I do feel like at NFM, very much people never see us coming. Like, they never see us coming. They don't know what to expect from this organization, and I like to pleasantly surprise them with the level of service. And so that energy I bring that in every room. So
I agree.
Like, someone can be having the worst day, and when we're done, they're like, I can run through a brick wall, or of course I should do it this way, or of course I'm amazing. And so when you can do that, and I've been blessed to have that skill set, I just spread it throughout the entire organization. And then people are like, yeah, we need a little bit more of that, LaTasha.
And it's so interesting because you don't really say this word, but Leslie and I were talking, because I know Leslie has some follow-up on this, but you have a creativity, and I think that is something that women, do bring to the table in just such a charismatic way. And
Yes.
I've known that about you, because in the marketing space, I'm always coming to you and like, hey, how do we make this work, and what do we have to adjust? So you are looking at it with a legal eye, but you are so creative on, hey, what if you made this adjustment and this still protects the consumer but gets, the information out there that you want to get out there. And I always appreciated that about you. And it wasn't just like a stopping point. I always felt like I could call and work through something and figure out, like, how do we do something and do it right, do it the right way, communicate exactly what we want to communicate. So I think the creativity part is something that you bring in such a big way.
Absolutely.
I have a big imagination. I had an imaginary friend.
So did I.
My oldest, I'm a child of four. My oldest sibling is 6 years older than me. So they say, okay, when you have that much of a gap, you feel like an only child. And so I had a crazy imagination when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I think I bring that child, that creativity to the table, but you guys bring it out of me, right? Because kind of going back to the fact that we want to be relatable. When I started in the industry, I didn't understand any of it, like APR, RESPA, what is all this nonsense? Like, what is this? How does this have to do, what does this have to do with how much I need to pay a month to own this home? And so making it approachable, making it relatable is what excites me. And handing someone a marketing piece and asking them what this means to them, does that resonate with you? Does that make you want to work with me? Or does that intimidate you that you don't know what the heck I'm talking about? And so you all do a very good job of making it relatable. And once you make it relatable, now the idea of home ownership, it's achievable now, because I'm talking to someone who actually understands where I'm at and is meeting me where I'm at.
Yeah.
And now we can go on this journey and we can create this experience for this customer that changes their lives. Like, we're changing people's lives. We're going to change 2,000 lives this month.
Yeah.
As an organization, which is very compelling.
Absolutely. And I feel like if you really break it all down, and we're talking about creativity, but it really is just curiosity, right? We all came from different backgrounds into the mortgage space, so we have this knowledge from other spaces, and we're trying to create context around mortgages, and it's like, well, why is it done this way? Or how can we change this? This doesn't seem like the most efficient way to do it. And just those questions kind of lead to the betterment of the system, I feel like.
100. I remember when I started, knew nothing, and I asked Daniel, I said, why is it always a 30-day contract? Like, why is it 30 days, the amount of time that it would take? And he was like, well, I think that's just kind of what
it is.
People. And I'm like, could we do it in 10 days? Could we close loans in 10 days? And I took a pipeline and tried it, and we can. Mm-hmm. We can close loan in 10 days. We do it now. It's part of our process. We have a whole 15-day process. But I think those kind of curious questions and pushing the envelope and not kind of, just moving with the status quo, like you build more with that curious mind, that open-mindedness.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad we're
naive, maybe.
Sometimes, right? Ignorance can be bliss.
100%. Like, just the curiosity of it. Like, why does it have to be done this way? And it goes back to a broader conversation, is that when you have people in leadership that are like, why does it have to be done this way, Kelly? Or, Leslie, can we say it this way? But you have to have the person who actually can make the final decision to support that, to be able to get that done. And you don't have that in every environment. Like at NFM, what is our superpower is we are an organization of people who are very entrepreneurial. And so because of that, we're all in the room together trying to figure out how we can move this organization forward in different and creative ways, which I love. But I remember some conversations with Kelly on marketing pieces, and I'm like, wait, I can make the call on this. Like, I don't have to go to someone else or a supervisor or a dude and be like, hey, do you think we should do this? Like, Kelly and I can have the conversation. Leslie, you and I can have the conversation, and it's done.
Right.
Right? And so that I do love, and that's been my experience this whole time, really,
Mm-hmm.
is giving an example. So like when I started, I was doing fair lending, and I said, why do we look at fair lending as like this bad thing, this regulatory requirement? How do we not look at it as an opportunity to increase market share? How do we not look at it as, let me take this data and let me figure out how we can get better penetration in women and protected class communities, and from that question, going to see the data and saying, oh my goodness, like 25% of our population at the time was identified as Hispanic. And then I'm like, wait a minute, do we have materials in Spanish? Do we have education? And it just like drives this conversation when you first have the idea, and then you match it up with the data, and then you can come to a partner, your corporate partner, who's like, oh, I'm all about it. I've been waiting for you to tell me this the whole time. How do we get this done? Where can I participate? How can I be a part?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's growth. Like that's where you see the company grow and evolve and, be a change maker and not just simply reacting to, the market.
That's right.
I love that.
And
So,
that is how your division, when every part of the organization industry was down, you all were outpacing. It wasn't supposed to be happening, right? So like in 2022, 2023, when the whole world was falling apart because of the interest rate environment, the Great Lakes division was still outpacing peers. You're already up 30%, I think, year over year in January, which, not for nothing, like that's in Ohio, like that's in Columbus. It's cold.
It's so cold.
really is.
And so you don't have that type of growth. You don't have that type of market presence if you are not getting in this data, and if you're not looking daily at how do I take this data and continue to maximize it with my processes and a customer experience and an external, whether it's referral partners, realtors, builders, taking that data and just packaging it up into an incredible experience for everybody involved. And the proof is in the pudding, as my mother would say, which is, you all are on pace to do another 30%, 40% this year, regardless of interest rates, right? And so you've got this system in place that's going to meet these consumers and get this production into your division, whether the interest rates are 5.5%, which we would love, or 7.5.
Yeah. And it's so funny that you mentioned that because I think sometimes it's always assumed people look at where you're at now
Yes.
and what you're doing now, and they're like, oh, that happened overnight, and those results that we're talking about today and in the next months, those are because of things that were built in 2020
That's
when we
it.
just had this influx of volume and everybody was kind of, they had so much business that they didn't work on their business.
Yeah.
Because that would have been chaotic, right? Why are we
Right.
going to fix anything now?
Right.
Well, we were like, okay, this much volume exposed a lot of things that we wanted to work on. And the best time to do it was then. And although it was painful to do then with
Yes.
the volume we had, once that volume went down, now we're seeing the results from that. And I think that's what sometimes people, when they look at you and see where
Yeah.
you are now, it's really easy to say, oh, it's easy for them, or what are they doing differently? It's like, you got to look back
That's
at
right.
the history.
Absolutely.
It's true. Someone reached out to me on LinkedIn, and she was just like, I love like your content. I just got an Instagram account like last year. I just got really more active on LinkedIn, but I said to her, I said, you're looking at the highlight reel. I'm like, you're looking at the culmination of 15 years of grinding, of
Yeah.
25 years of being a lawyer, of several late nights, of, several late nights, lots of frustration and lots of failing forward, which is
Mm-hmm.
Kendall, the term Kendall used on our call, which I love. Like, we failed forward. And so, yeah, it looks all fancy and shiny and new now, but my goodness, the work and the sacrifice that it took to be able to celebrate the wins publicly. um, you're right, this stuff is done in the dark.
Yes, it's always done in the dark, and I think that
Yeah.
that's
Mm-hmm.
so nice to talk to you now and talk about kind of, just your history and that hard work and where we are today. Is so exciting to celebrate
Yes,
that that all happened.
it all happened
Mm-hmm.
and we were all there together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the Derby, what year was that? Was that 23?
24,
It was
2024.
2024,
20.
yeah.
It feels like forever
It
ago.
does.
Yeah.
That means we need to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, Greg?
Yeah, exactly. We'll clip this portion out and send that to
Yeah.
Greg. We gotta run it back.
No, but talking
Absolutely.
about like wins and celebration, and now like moving into this new phase in life, I know like Leslie and I were talking because you had done something really fun recently, which
Yeah.
was you had written a book.
That was
Um,
2025, right? That one got
Yeah.
published. It was, I have it written down here, The Unbelievable Adventures of Gabby and Josh Can.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote books. It's that creative side, but that was in the pandemic too. So
Wow.
in 2020, I was like, what can I do to make more impact? How can I use everything I know to really start this conversation early? People are so terrified to talk to their kids about money. Like, they will talk to their kids about sex before they'll talk to their kids about money. They'll talk to them about drug use and all of
Mhm.
these things that are prominent. And yes, you should talk to your children about that. But you also need to talk to your children about how to spend, save, and share money. And so I wrote a series of children's books. The third installation, I'm finishing up the illustrations now. And the second one, I'm going to drop that one. I'm hoping in June. And it talks about sharing, which is, if you don't spend and save correctly, you can't share.
Yeah.
And so I created the books. I created workbooks to go with them so that parents could talk to their children. But I want to normalize the conversation. Like, why do we, like, money gets a bad rap. Like, people think it's
Mhm.
not kosher to talk about money and to have money conversations. And I feel that way, especially for women. I wrote these books initially as a celebration of my daughter, Gabby. And then I said, well, Josh is amazing as well. And how do I take their characters and their personalities and create this book? And then how does that open me up to have these larger conversations around money? And I'll pivot just a little bit because this is, to talk about women's history. I was talking to a young lady. She has $5,000 in a savings account, like non-interest bearing, whatever. She's getting like 2 cents a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is this not in a high yield savings account?
Right.
And she said, I'm afraid I'm going to need the money. I said, well, you would need the money whether it's making you more money or not. Every month that this is sitting in this savings account, you're losing money.
Right.
And I told her, I said, you have to do this. I'm going to come and be your accountability partner. She's 28 years old.
Mhm.
You got to do this. You got to think realistically about your money. Don't be afraid to talk about money and talk about money with people who understand it. I said, every month, get a glass of wine, open up all of your accounts, your pension, your 401k, your savings account, get a glass of wine, spend a month looking at your money. Where should I be moving this money? How much should I spend this month?
Mhm.
You can have your lattes, you can get your blowout, you can get your pedicure. Do all of those things. but know where your money is going and know how to allocate that. And it's okay. Men spend money on golf clubs, men spend
Yeah.
money on, all these other things. We
Ew.
can spend money on our hair, we can spend money on like bags, whatever your thing is.
Yeah.
But understand money and understand the power of money and the power of managing money and the power of making money, right? Negotiating for yourself.
Absolutely.
I don't play about my money. Like, I don't play about it. And David Silverman can tell you, right? Like, when I'm negotiating based on data, based on facts, because at the end of the day, I love what I do, but this is a job that is providing for my family, providing for my kids. And so I can't play around with
Right.
any of it. And so the books kind of bringing it full circle. I truly believe my mission is to reframe what we think about home ownership, to dismantle this negative belief on home ownership that this next generation is not going to be able to own a home. It's not affordable. Let's just be on vibes. Let's just be in Italy. Let's just be in Santa Terrini because we're not going to have money for a home. Do that too,
Right.
but own a home first. And you start that conversation as early as 7,
Yeah.
as early as 5. And then I want to run it up and I want to take it all the way through to continue to lower this age that people are thinking about buying a home. Think about it differently. It's part of an investment strategy. You don't have to feel like I'm tied down and it's 7 years or whatever. It's part of your investment strategy. We did 20,000 transactions last year. About 9,000 of those were either a woman on her own,
Cool.
a woman who was the primary borrower, or a woman buying an investment property.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing.
these are very real numbers that NFM is reaching, and our average consumer is still in their 30s. And so just think of what we can continue to do. So
Yeah.
so 2020, we started the conversation. 2020 is when you were building all the systems. Imagine if we can take that and continue to build on that in 2026,
Yeah.
and what that
I
looks like 5 years from now.
And I mean, kind of going just briefly back to like the book, the children's book, it kind of opens the door for, I mean, I'm thinking of myself and just societal norms. Like women are
Yeah.
usually with the children teaching
Yes.
and reading children's books. So it opens this space for me to think differently and maybe even educate myself on how can I teach my children, because growing up, my dad was the one who handled all the financials.
Yes.
And so that's what I saw. It's different in our house, but that took time too, because
Right.
you know, Daniel was very financially astute. Like he understands it all, but there is an organization to it that
Sure.
I felt like I could benefit. And I think this children's book, I just loved the idea of it, because I thought, wow, when do you talk to your kids about this? How do you let them know that we're not asking for like roles to be switched? We're just
Yeah.
saying that we can both have a place,
Yeah.
a spot at the table. And I think there are not a lot of resources out there specifically for women
Yeah.
to say, hey, you have the power to make some decisions too and impact. So I love that whole thing, because it's not about replacing, it's about being partners, and maybe even
That's it.
equal partners at decision making, education, and really like going further to educate yourself.
Yeah.
Because I know in the past I have felt like, oh, do I need to worry about that? Like he's got that, but it's
Yeah.
it's great to come to the table and give suggestions and say, hey, I read about this, or I've researched this, or hey, I was looking at the data on this, and we've made some really great decisions for our family because I was, came to the table and felt like, okay, I could.
Yeah. Anything can happen, right? Anything can happen in the partnership to either of you, and both having the knowledge of where things sit, where are we on life insurance? Like all of these things matter. And I do it like I love, there are a couple of people I follow on Instagram. Melody Hobson, who I love, she, is a badass, and she talks a lot about your financial literacy, financial house in order. She's written a book. Your Rich BFF is also one of the people that I follow who's incredible. I love a lot of the tips and the knowledge. There's another individual, her name is escaping me, but like Aspire, the podcast by Emma Grady, who was the partial founder of Skims. So there is a lot of information out here, and there are a lot of women having these conversations around money. And when I look at these individuals, I said, well, where can I do my part? And then I'm like, all right, well, I can do these children's books, and I can, they rhyme, and all the things, and there's an underwater adventure, and it's a lot of fun. But at the end of the core of it, like, your child is going to be like, wait, Josh spent his money. Why did he spend his money? And it's like really just a door opener to start those conversations. And Kelly, you hit on something that's true. Like, in some instances, the woman is the one that's reading the story, putting the child to bed. Like, mom is doing that. And at least in my household, my mom was the one who read most of the stories to us. And so having these books and having that as an economic conversation that you can have with your child early is important. Our children are very, very blessed. The industry has afforded us to have a lifestyle that we would not otherwise have had. And so, like, for my kids, I'm reminding them that this is work, but then you also have to manage it. It's not limitless. Right. I'm not, like, I know they think it grows on trees. I promise you, my daughter thinks money grows on trees. It does not.
I always say, and my 5-year-old doesn't get it yet, but I'm like, privilege with, being privileged and having privilege comes responsibility.
That's it.
Not entitlement. Like, this is something I'm trying, right? Because I grew up very differently than they did, but that's something, having like a children's book to kind of start those conversations early, like, is just amazing. So that was exciting to learn a little bit more about.
Yeah, stay tuned. Number 2 and number 3 are on the way. I'm actually doing, for Financial Literacy Month, which is next month, I'm also doing some partnerships where I'm doing some book matches, and I'll be giving some books away to some children's hospitals and some other community partners, so that they too can have this experience where they can just start to normalize this conversation.
Yeah, I love that. Let us know if there's any way that we can get involved with that initiative.
Yeah, we'd love that.
And I'll be on the lookout for your second drop. I did buy your first one, and I gifted it to my 6-year-old niece, because I so agree that those conversations are important. And actually, Kelly and I did a workshop, I think it was last year, we did a women's workshop, and part of that
was last year, I think.
I think it was Women's History Month, I think, as well, last year though. And part of that workshop was just really talking about finances and really getting down to the root of your attitude towards money, right? Because how you view one thing is how you view everything, and just really understanding that, like, what is your relationship with money and why does that exist, and kind of unpacking that. So I feel like
she asked a great question that I was like, this is a great thing to think about for anyone. But she asked, what is your earliest memory about money? And I love that, because my earliest memory is just saving money. My parents were very, very focused on that, and I would hide money that I would make. I always had a job when I was very little, but I would hide money in my shoe, and I would hide it. And my parents would like, hey, do you have any cash? And they would borrow and then pay me back with some interest. But that was such a great exercise that they did, because I loved that, they taught me to save. They were not, teaching me on investments or anything, but
that's the start.
Exercise of borrowing money and paying it back, and being on time and being honest about, like, my parents were they were teaching me, little exercise. I thought, they need money, but they were teaching very
I, I
a
love
very good
that.
lesson. Yeah.
So Kelly was in lending since very young.
I
Yes.
know. I didn't even realize it.
That's
But
amazing.
That's great. That actually is great. Like that exercise of that. My early and Leslie, I want to hear yours too though. But two money memories for me. One, my sister totally took advantage of me. So she would get money to wash the dishes. She would get we all got some form of allowance. She would get an allowance to wash dishes, and she was like, LaTasha, I will give you 5 cents every time you wash the dishes. I had no, listen, I'm not that old. 5 cents was not a lot of money back then
Yeah.
either, right? So, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, 5 cents. And so I went all the way down the rabbit hole with him. Like, if I wash the dishes 10 times, I'll have 50 cents.
Hmm.
Well, great. I still couldn't buy anything. But, but the point was, like, I don't know what she was teaching me other than I was doing her work for her, but she actually, it was a business, right? So like
Hmm.
for the $10 she got, she only had to carve out,
Right.
5 cents for me, and she was able to
so
take
smart.
she was able to take the entire amount, and then and we talk about it, we laugh about it all the time. She swears it never happened. It did, but we talk about it all the time and how it taught me about math, but it also taught me about business. Like, wait a minute, if I have this money, I could have people helping me to build the business. I can take that money and I can invest it, so that, but then I loved Cabbage Patch dolls. And so my father was like, all right, you can have Cabbage Patch, you got to save for it. We lived down the street from Toys R Us when I was growing up. It was like heaven. Like, I was like, I would go to school, I'm like, oh, I live down the street from Toys R Us. I don't know where you guys live, but I live by Toys R Us. And so I was saving this money for my Cabbage Patch doll, and my father owned his own company, and he would pay me through the company, but there were taxes coming out. And so I hadn't accounted. I was like, oh, if I do this and this is how much I'm going to have, I forgot about taxes, which caused me to learn about taxes,
Yeah.
and then to also understand how to save and account for that as well when you're earning money for a goal. So Leslie, tell me, like, what's your first
Oh
money
gosh.
memory?
I feel like growing up, I was definitely incentivized with money. So, like, if you have good grades, you can earn money. If when your report card is released, I was always, given an allowance essentially, or every week. So, this is actually something funny that I used to do. I used to get a weekly allowance for lunch money, but I would figure out how to not spend the full amount for that lunch so that I would have extra money left over every week. And then I would use that. I was always into fashion, even like middle school, high school. I was really into like staying up with trends and stuff. So I would have this extra lunch money, or I
I
would
love
like take an extra Pop Tart from the house and just, this is terrible for my health, but I would like take an extra Pop Tart from my
I
house
feel like you were
for lunch.
investing in yourself very early.
Yes, self-care.
Pay
Yeah.
myself first.
Yep. So I would just end up with extra money that I could use on fun stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
food just felt like just an essential. Like I didn't need to have the full school lunch that like I didn't even enjoy. Like I would figure out ways to just be able to set aside half of that lunch money to be able to buy
So
fun
smart.
stuff.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I liked those mashed potatoes and that roll, that dinner roll too much.
Oh yeah.
I
With the gravy.
Yes.
I was in for us, if we forgot our lunch money, we got a grilled cheese, and
Oh, that's great.
I
That
like the
they-
grilled cheese sandwiches. So Leslie, to your point, I would take that money too, and I was like, well, I'll just tell him. Well, maybe not the most honest, but I was like, I'll just tell him I don't
Yeah.
have my money right now, and I'll get the grilled cheese sandwich, and then I'll save that money for later. But the point is, like, in all of those storylines, the parents introduced it, right?
Yeah.
Even whether it was intentional, unintentional,
Yeah.
either they introduced it with allowance that you were getting money for a certain thing, or they introduced it, Kelly, in your example, where they were like, oh, we need to borrow some money, we'll give it back to you. So genius.
And they were so, I just am like, I didn't realize it then, but they were so on top of the date that they were like, oh yeah, you'll get it back on this date. And like they were always on time, like, which it's so funny because I know my dad and like he's just such a very financially responsible person. And I think that was kind of ingrained in me at an early age. And my mom's the same way, but you know, he handled the finances. So he was just, you know, very on time, like this is this and you pay it back. And so very lucky on that, but I'm excited. I mean, we didn't have children's books where my mom was talking to me about it. I love that idea.
Yeah. You got some real life examples, and I'm always talking to people about this type of stuff for ideas of how I can translate that into like a workbook or an activity. And parents message me on my socials, on my Instagram specifically, because I do a lot of tips there. And they're like, thank you, because I just don't know where to start. I know that I'm creating a psychological thing with them and how they see money, because they look at it based on what their parents, it could be traumatic.
Yeah.
If you grew up in a household where money was scarcity, or you know, bills weren't getting paid on time, or you had to move frequently because of money, and then that forms how you look at it once you become an adult. And so, you know, it's important for this next generation of homeowners that we start these conversations very early, because we're looking at the data. They're coming in a different way. Like there's gig economy. There are people that work either DoorDash or Uber, or they start their own business where they're doing, you know, something consulting on the side. And so we've got all these sources of income. It's not the same as a W-2 where you say, okay, I have this money and let me just take this money and do this with it, and I know how much I'm going to get. It fluctuates, right? And so when you have income that's fluctuating like that, it's a different way to manage that. And so starting those conversations young, and then taking that all the way through to some of the other things that we're doing, like we're working on an app at NFM that speaks to housing counseling, but speaks to it in a different way, a more engaging way, a fun way, and introducing that to our NFM consumers, just based on the fact that we know this next generation, one, the way they look at money is different, because they do love to be outside. We all love to be outside. But the second thing is they have these different and varying sources of income, and helping them to budget and manage that for the homeownership experience is important too.
Yeah. This is really all impactful. I feel like, you know, the common theme here is like having this idea, getting in touch with your creativity of like, there's a problem, I think I have an answer to it, and then seeing it through, right? Like with your book, like I see a problem, I feel like I can help, you know, a small part of this problem by doing this, and then actually seeing it through. What advice do you have for women, specifically within NFM, right? There's a lot of opportunities, I feel like, a lot of problems that just exist in our day-to-days. What advice do you have for women who feel that pull to do something to solve a problem, but don't know where to start?
Yeah, I would say hopefully they have someone in the organization that they can have those conversations with. And I would say, so what I tell my team, don't come to me with a problem if you don't have a solution. I don't care if the solution is crazy. I don't care if it's wrong. I don't care if it's a solution I wouldn't necessarily deploy, but don't come to me saying this is broken or I saw this issue and then bye. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that if you and everybody sees things, right? Women, we have this unique superpower where we are able to see some of the smallest details, and we look at it holistically from a problem solving. So I think if you see something, I think that you should noodle over how you would fix it or how it can be resolved. And then the second thing is, if there's someone that you feel comfortable that you can talk to about it, hi, I saw this issue, here's how I would resolve it. Do you think that's even valuable? And then you take that on, and hopefully, and NFM is good about this, is that we are flat. You're able to take it to a supervisor or a leader, or you're able to really put something
Yeah.
together and then present it.
Yeah.
And I say this to everybody, you have to be in that type of environment. If that is your personality, where you identify things and you want to solution towards them, and you're not getting the support, you got to go.
Yeah.
You got to go. You got to go to where you can provide the most impact. We don't have a moment in our lives to waste on nonsense or not making impact.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if you are not making impact in your role and you're feeling that itch that you want to be more solution oriented, and the environment doesn't respond to that, get into a different environment. Like you owe it, you literally owe it to yourself to make decisions, to lead whatever it is that gets you going. You owe it to yourself to be in an environment where you can make the most impact. And so that would be my solution. I'm recruiting now, so I'm talking to salespeople now and telling them how incredible this organization is, and they should come work here because I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can go anywhere, but I'm not there, so you got to be where I'm at. I'm at NFM, so you got to come to NFM,
Yeah.
right? But I was talking to a recruit not too long ago about their mission, about their passion. And I said, listen, you have to leave where you're at. Like, I'm telling you, I don't care if you come to NFM, which obviously not true, but I'm like, even if you don't come to NFM, if NFM is not your choice, where you're at now is not going to get you to the goal you're trying to reach. So you have to leave anyway. So if you have to leave anyway, let me help you blow this thing out of the water. Let me help you grow your business. Let me help you do it at NFM.
Yeah.
And so, we're all called to do something in life. And whatever that is, like, we're all called to do it. And when you identify what your calling is, you have to do everything humanly possible to be in the environment that will help you to fulfill that calling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people needed to hear that message because it's so true. And it's a big reason why I shifted from the space that I previously worked in to this
There
space
you go.
for that, right? Like the red tape
Yeah.
that was just holding me back. I feel like in terms of my strengths, and coming to NFM really opened up those doors and has allowed me to tap into those strengths and,
Yeah.
elevate the system. I think Kelly has a really cool story, and she kind of touched on this previously, or alluded to it. When Daniel said that contracts are all 30 days and really didn't have an answer as to why, I think that moment allowed Kelly to be a little curious about it, right? And then from that, she really pioneered our fastest cash pre-approval, right? So,
Yeah.
I feel like, Kelly, if you want to share a little bit about
Yeah,
that.
it's so interesting because my background is in marketing. That's where I feel the most comfortable. That is my passion. But the only way I could do that role was to really learn the business. So when I started as a loan partner. I learned how to take 1003s. I got my license. I am licensed. I continue that CE every year just because you learn more and it helps you be the best at, the marketing side of things. But when I knew we could do 10-day closings, because I had also, through my journey here, I had processed loans and carried a pipeline, because that was another curiosity I had, was like, oh, could we close loans in 10 days? Let me see if we can do. I didn't trust, I guess I didn't trust what somebody would tell me, like, oh, we can't get that doc, or this can't get done. So I wanted to see for myself. So I carried a small pipeline, and learned what we could do, when we could do that. And we actually had like a contest for a really long time to see how many people could get 10-day closings. From there, what happened was that kind of, I think, there were changes made in the process, but it kind of set like just a system of efficiency for everyone. And when I was looking at the data, I realized that the the division was averaging 15 days from contract to close, like 15 to from contract to CTC.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, if that's our average, I know we can do 15-day closes. So could we offer or market a fastest cash closing, which meant that, a borrower could do with their offer to the seller, say, hey, I can close in 15 days. And this is when the market was really competitive and we were trying to have an edge for our clients. So I was just thinking about how to market something we're already doing. And it was so great because I had told Daniel and Alex, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And I knew we could test it on Daniel's team first.
Yep.
And I was like, but I just know how salespeople are. And I'm like, you have to put some guidelines around this.
Yeah.
And because we can put this on a pre-approval letter, but it's not always available to everybody, right? Because there's certain loan types that just might not be in our control. For example, if it's a down payment assistance where it has to go to an outside, things like that. So we wanted to make sure we had the language right. We talked to LaTasha, like, hey, we would have to see if someone was eligible for it, if they qualify for it. And I will never forget, this was like on a Friday, and we were going to test it on the weekend. And of course, on Monday, Daniel announces it on the loan officer, we're going to do this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, well, rein it in and try to get some guides around it, because I just know, like, salespeople are either so enthusiastic when they have something new and something that can, benefit their client and give their client an edge. I knew they were going to go for it, but we obviously wouldn't be able to do that for every client because of, like, some of the things I talked about. We'd obviously have to have buy-in from the client too. They would have to have all docs, things like that. But that was something that was born out of just, like, the knowledge of the industry that I had learned, the idea of a marketing, and then asking questions, and really, like, tapping into something we're already doing. I don't know why it's freezing, but tapping into something that you're already doing is what I think good marketing is. You're not trying to sell people on something that doesn't exist. You're not trying to, because that just gets you in trouble. You're not trying to exaggerate the truth. You're trying to look at something really special that we're doing and saying, oh my gosh, we need to, like, talk about this or build something around this, because that's the one thing I think from the outside looking in, a lot of people, our marketing team gets a lot of credit because it's really fun and it's the most visual part of who we are. But I would not have been able to do that or even come up with that idea if our operations team and the system that we have wasn't solid.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable as a marketing person. So the fact that Daniel, Andy, Mark, like, the whole team has just built something really special and super solid, it makes marketing's job so easy. We just find those, like, things that we're doing, like, hey guys, like, this is a big deal. You guys know. And they don't always know that because it's just, like, how it is. So being able to offer that.
That's so fascinating to take. So, like, this is the genius of what you just said so much. And Leslie, I do want to hear, like, your thing too, because I know you have an origin story as well, but I want to, like, double down on what you just said, Kelly, is that marketing is much more than just marketing and colors and, the right scheme and the right words. Like, you literally took an idea that would impact the entire organization. You learned it, right? You learned it on your own. You fact checked people who were like, oh, we can't do it this way. You took this one production opportunity, ran it all the way through, set the process up, and then you were able to intelligently sell it to your sales team to then market it. So, like, the customer is getting, fast as cash, and that's all they see, not realizing what it took on the back end to test, to build, to
Yeah.
determine who qualified, to look at the data, to say, this is where I think we can make the most. I love
And we called
everything
it, and I
that you
remember
said.
working with you because we didn't call it same as cash. We called it as fast as cash closing. That's what it's called. And that's because during that time there were a lot of cash offers and they were
Yeah,
doing them in 15 days, like a 2 week. And so we put that on the pre-approval letter because we knew when that was submitted to the offer, the listing agent and the seller would say, wait a minute, like this offer is just as good. It's going to close the same. And
yeah,
we wanted our clients to have skin in the game and
yeah,
not to be looked over and the seller to take a lower offer
Right.
just because it was cash.
right.
And that we helped so many clients with that. And, I think eventually we'll be able to expand upon that, who would be eligible for it. But
Yeah,
the fact that it was an option and why, and, I saw some people, which is always a compliment in the industry, seeing that and not probably really understanding what was going into
sure.
that. And then they might have a 14-day closing at some point and say, oh, I had a light cash or as good as cash. But I don't think they realized ours was a system. There was
Yeah,
a process. We were doing a whole, we were trying to really help our clients with that. But
yeah.
Yeah.
that kind of stuff is the fun stuff for me.
It
'Cause
is
I'm
the
like,
fun stuff.
the more I can figure out, and then I got to call LaTasha. I'm like, hey, can we say this? Is this right?
Yeah.
And we sure do it. We really do that because we want to do it. And I use the word safely, but like
Yeah,
we want to be able to close the loan the right way for our client and make sure
Right.
we don't offer something that we can't do. So
that's
I mean,
right.
I felt confident because our turn times were already there.
Yeah.
Right. It
I
already
didn't offer
existed.
anything
We just put a
less.
name to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. You just kind of refined and repackaged it to reach more consumers. And Kelly will text me or she'll call me, and I'm always like, "Ooh, this is going to be good,"
Oh, yeah.
because
I'm like, I only call.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because and sometimes you will just call, like, I'm just curious about this. This isn't necessarily my world or whatever, but I'm curious. Or you're like, I have this idea. And I'm like, tell me more.
Buckle up.
Like, I'm like, tell me more. And then when you say the idea, I'm like, say less. Like, let's do it. Like, let's go. So, but Leslie, so you come from a different background too, and what you've been able to contribute in your, like, and so you all are part of the same division, but at the same time, Andy, you and Andy have been, and you were promoted as well,
Yeah.
well deserved, and probably 2 years later than when it should have been done. But I'm curious also to hear about your background and like what was the curiosity solution that you put together
Yeah.
for the Beigel team.
Yeah. Gosh. So my background, I mean, to go way back when I was a kid, right? I had this like desire to be a teacher. I loved school. I loved learning. I had really good connections with my teachers, and I felt like I want to be like them. And then I got into high school and I took an intro to psychology course, and I'm like, oh no, this is it. Like, I love psychology. This is what I want to do. And I actually was introduced to the field of school psychology, which was like amazing. It married the two fields, a teacher and a psychologist. Like, it kind of gave me the best of both worlds. So that is what I did. I went into school psychology. I was a school psychologist for 5 years. And unfortunately, right, this idea of what a school psychologist is did not really meet the expectation that I had when I got into the field. I think that happens quite frequently in a lot of different of those helping fields. And so there's a lot of red tape, a lot of barriers to being able to actually help kids and help people. And so, unfortunately, because of that continual experience, I just experienced burnout. And so I knew that I wouldn't retire being a school psychologist, but I really, truly didn't have an idea of what I would be doing. And then COVID happened and we were sent home. So trying to be a school psychologist from a home setting is just 10 times more challenging.
Yeah.
And so, as we would have it, Andy had just, wrapped up his first year being a loan officer, and 2020 interest rates just plummeted, right? So he was just busy as could be. He was just a solo producing loan officer and could not keep up with the amount of volume that he had. And so I had that summer off because I worked in a school setting. So he's like, why don't you figure out how to help me out, right? And
Yeah.
we were like, you know what, we can do this for a summer, and if I decide that this is for me, great, and if not, then okay, I can just always go back to being a school psychologist until I figure out my next move. So we did that. His business doubled. He's like, yeah, your income's replaced. Hopefully you enjoy this. And it was a little bit of a challenge in the beginning. I think we probably all felt that way jumping into mortgages, just really trying to figure out our role. And I feel like from what I've heard from all of our conversations so far, we have all worn a lot of hats. We've all identified a lot of problems and all came up with a lot of solutions and implemented those. And as soon as we've done that and saw the success of doing that, I think that's where the value of our position has really been, identified. And so, I've done it all. I've been his loan partner, I've been his processor, I've been the branch pipeline manager, I've been a processing supervisor. I've, kind of done all of those different roles, and I feel like now we're in this new phase where we're trying to figure out what's next. That's always the question.
I remember, and Leslie didn't really touch on this, but Leslie's contribution has not only been at their branch, but for the division too.
Yeah.
A lot of the ideas she has, I think you meet with Daniel like at least once a month or so.
We have a lot of conversations. I love,
because Leslie's intelligence was needed here. Needed, and that's why Andy's business doubled, because of Leslie. And I don't want her to sell herself short on that, and I don't think she does, but I know how hard it is to be a spouse in this business, because a woman in this business, I would say maybe in the past was hard. I don't think at NFM, it just feels like we're all in here together, and it doesn't feel like we need a seat at the table. We're there, we've been there. Yeah. But I would say the spouse, and I remember when Leslie was going to come on, she and Andy, we had dinner with them, and she was kind of asking some questions, and I think you were going to come in and do like a little bit of like relationship stuff for him, and I remember just saying, well, I think as a spouse, you just got to be willing to go wherever the business needs you.
You literally said that, I remember.
you are given a title, and you have a role, and even I think they think that's what you're going to do, but maybe in their minds they're like, but you're going to do so much more. I don't know. But I remember my first day, which I came in to do marketing, and Daniel gives me a script, and he was like, I need you to dial on these leads. I was like, what? What? And but I would never change that because I learned the business so much. But I think it is a constant, you're just shifting and adjusting to where the business needs you, especially every time you grow. And that takes a very unique person to kind of sit in that and be grounded in that and be okay with it. So even with all the everything that Leslie's brought to the table and all the ideas and things that they've implemented at the division level, just being that person that can shift and deal with that too. It just takes a really special person.
It does. And
maybe it takes a woman. It takes a woman. I don't know if Daniel would do that. I don't know if he could do that for me.
Right.
I mean, who hasn't felt like they're talking to children or they're someone's therapist? Like, Lord knows, I've felt that way at NFM on a multitude of occasions. And so, Leslie, by that being your initial background, I'm sure that also helps too.
It did.
Quite
Oh yeah.
honestly, it's stressful, and I tell my team all the time, people forget, commission only is stressful,
Right.
especially if you are trying to hit certain production goals. If you don't hit it,
Yeah.
your income is impacted
Which is your
dramatically.
livelihood, right?
If you don't have those relationships, it affects your family. It affects everyone else that you're responsible for, including yourself financially. And so having an understanding of that and what that looks like from a psychological standpoint,
Hmm.
right? And being able to articulate and talk to those individuals based on understanding those stressors, it is important. And so like your background coming into it, and coming into it in COVID, Lord, it's like
Hmm.
baptism by fire.
Yeah.
So having that experience, and then so like it's parallel, Kelly, all the stuff that you talked about, you built for the overall division in terms of
Hmm.
what was happening in 2020.
Yeah.
And then Leslie coming in 2020 as well with record volume to support the group and to support Andy. And now
Hmm.
you've got this culmination of what we see in 2026, which is what we talked about when we first started the conversation, which is you all were up when no one else was. You all were up regardless of rate environment, and it's because of all the things we just talked about,
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
um, that were happening behind the scenes, and because of the curiosity and being able to tie the data into a concept, into an idea, into a process is very fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so like I hope when people watch this, like one thing that people know and understand is like I before I came here I worked for a women's fashion brand. It was almost all women there. I mean, they had a couple of senior leaders that were men, but I think it just made sense that with the brand and who they were, they had a huge, you know, uh, women staff and
Hmm.
employees, and but feeling like I had a business woman that I could go to and ask ideas and call, and just with both of you and other women in this company, has that is what's so cool, because I'm like, we have like amazing, super smart, super intelligent women that work
Yeah.
here, and it's like, what
Yeah,
are you doing, what are we working on, what are we doing next? And I think that is something that's so unique.
It
yeah,
is.
And I look at everyone here on this call, but also some people that are in the office that I see. I'm
Hmm.
just like, we have some badass women, like business women,
Hello.
yes,
and and I never like to cuss, but I feel like that's deserved right
That's
there.
passion.
Yeah, we really do, and I think that I hope that that's what people take from this too, is like the
Hmm.
strength of
yeah.
the women that are here.
And the
I,
rarity of
I
this
so
environment.
appreciate the
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out, and we're closing out Women's History Month,
Hmm.
but for me, I think we started something that we should probably
I agree.
I
continue.
know. I'm like, wait, I have an idea
I have a
after
whole
this.
nother hour. I know we could talk for days, and I think that just speaks to the importance of this conversation to be had,
Yeah,
right? And I agree, Latasha. I feel like we could certainly continue this and, maybe even make it a series, a quarterly series or something like that. We can put all
yeah.
our brains together. We'll have an answer to
I
the
have ideas
problem.
already. It's cooking.
Let's cook it.
I love it.
Awesome. Well,
Thank you so
yeah,
much, LaTasha, for your
Thank
time.
you.
we appreciate it. Happy Women's History Month. Thanks for all you do.
Yes.
Yes, keep killing it, ladies.
All right. All
See ya.
right. See ya.
Bye.